After marrying the most prestigious young general in the capital, we exchanged no more than 10 words a day, besides the awkward good morning when we ran into each other at the dining hall every morning. The only other daily exchange was when he politely asked, "Is it all right?" during our perfunctory nightly routine. I counted the days of this loveless marriage, feeling like a widow trapped in a gilded cage, when word reached me that his one true love had returned. I proposed a divorce with all due dignity. On that day, Shinyu still wore his usual expressionless face, merely replying with a polite "very well." I packed my luggage, ready to return to the palace, but as I turned around, I caught an unintended glimpse of Shinyu's back. Even the corners of his eyes were red. Recently, the capital was abuzz with one major event. Princess Yongle, who had been traveling and studying abroad for 3 years, was finally returning to the imperial court. Rumor had it that she had spent those 3 years practicing asceticism in various Taoist temples, and now her studies were complete, marking the fulfillment of her spiritual journey. I sat drinking tea in an elegant private room on the 3rd floor of a tea house. The room was tastefully decorated, and when the inner window was thrown open, the chatter from the 1st and 2nd floors drifted up clearly. Princess Yongle is the real deal, no doubt about it. A few years back, I caught a distant glimpse of her at the heaven-worshipping ceremony. She looked like a goddess descending to earth, incomparable to that fake princess. "Who are you referring to?" someone asked. "Who else? That imposter." She had her true identity exposed, yet she still has the audacity to cling to her place in the palace. Brother Zhao, watch your tongue. Royal family secrets are no joking matter. You'll get yourself arrested if you keep spouting nonsense like that. The man who had spoken paid no heed, laughing loudly. Afraid of what? That fake princess isn't even favored by the emperor and empress. Who's going to stick up for her? The crowd erupted into raucous laughter. I swallowed the last bite of my pastry with a blank expression, feeling a sudden lump in my throat. Funny, isn't it? Even if I had been swapped with Yongle at birth, stealing her identity, so what? Even if the emperor and empress had let me stay in the palace after Yongle was brought back, so what? Even if no one in the palace had ever liked me, so what? My identity had nothing to do with any of these people. Yet 9 times out of 10, every time I came to this tea house, I would hear them endlessly gossiping about me, then bursting into fits of laughter. Downstairs, a drunk man's voice boomed even louder. "Speaking of which, now that Princess Yongle is back, that fake princess ought to get the hell out of the general's mansion." Absolutely. She stole someone else's betrothal for years. How can she live with herself? At those words, my hand froze mid-motion as I lifted my teacup to my lips. Yes, Yongle was back now. It was time for me to leave, wasn't it? I finished the last sip of my tea with a stony face, then wheeled my chair down the stairs with the help of a waiter. As I passed through the bustling lobby on the 1st floor, the patrons were still deep in their heated discussion, completely oblivious that the very subject of their gossip was gliding past them in a wheelchair. That night, Shinyu returned extremely late. According to the maids in the mansion, he had entered the palace, most likely to see Yongle. With that thought in mind, I had the maids help me into bed, then curled up and fell sound asleep, claiming the entire bed without a shred of guilt. In the middle of the night, Shinyu came back. His body permeated with the chill of the night air. I was a light sleeper. The moment he stepped into the room, I heard him. Shinyu was changing his clothes when he noticed I was awake. He paused mid-movement, then suddenly climbed into bed beside me, and asked politely, "Is it convenient tonight?" Only after I gave my consent did a faint, satisfied smile cross his lips. As our bodies intertwined, I caught a whiff of gardenia fragrance on his skin. In the entire palace, only Yongle favored gardenia-scented balm. A strange, indescribable feeling welled up in my chest, and in a hazy moment, it all clicked into place. He had indeed gone to see Yongle. After that night of passion, even my usually numb waist felt sore and tired, just like every other day. Shun Yu carried me to the bathroom to wash up, then wheeled my chair to the dining hall for breakfast. The previous night's exertions had been a little too much. Shun Yu ate his breakfast in silence. Neither of us said a word, even though we had been married for 3 years. The total number of words we had exchanged could be counted on one hand. Originally, it was Yongle who had been betrothed to him. I had resorted to underhanded tactics to steal Shun Yu away from her, but 3 years had passed, and now Yongle had returned in glory, while I was still trapped in this inexplicable, tangled web of emotions. I irritably ran a hand through my hair, at the sound of my movement. Shun Yu looked up, as if about to ask if I was all right, but for some reason, he quickly masked the look of concern on his face and continued eating his breakfast with that same expressionless stare. A sudden wave of weariness washed over me at the thought of this lifeless existence. An inexplicable anger bubbled up in my chest, and I blurted out directly, "Let's get a divorce." Shun Yu's hand froze mid-air, the chopsticks pausing above his bowl. He looked up at me, a flicker of surprise crossing his face as he frowned and asked, "A divorce?" Even though the words had been spoken, the knot of frustration in my chest showed no sign of loosening. I avoided his gaze and said calmly, "Yes, a divorce. I'm tired of this married life. I don't want to live like this anymore." "Are you serious?" "I am." I went on, "I trust you will respect my decision, won't you?" A deathly silence descended over the dining hall. From the corner of my eye, I saw Shun Yu open his mouth, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, all that came out was a cold, emotionless "very well." He stood up, wiped his mouth with a handkerchief nearby, and smiled faintly. "I'm done eating. I'll head to court now." As Shun Yu walked away, an inexplicable ache tugged at my heartstrings. When I was a child, before my identity as a fake princess was exposed, the Empress had actually doted on me quite a bit after all. I was her only daughter back then. Later, for some reason, they found out about the consort scheme to swap the princesses at birth, and sent people to the countryside to bring Yongle back to the palace. The consort, the midwife, and everyone involved in the plot were secretly disposed of. Only me, the fake princess, left them in a dilemma. The truth was, none of this had been my fault. What's more, if this scandal were to leak, it would bring great shame to the royal family. In the end, both Yongle and I were placed under the Empress's care, and the official story was that the Empress had given birth to twins that year. After Yongle returned, I finally realized that some things were just inborn. She was a born princess, beautiful, graceful in song and dance. The moment she stepped into the palace, she won over everyone's hearts. Even the Emperor and Empress gradually stopped asking about my daily life and studies. It felt like the entire world was favoring her. Then one day, the Chishyang Palace caught fire. In the midst of the blaze, the Empress had struggled to carry Yongle out to safety, completely forgetting that I was also trapped inside the palace. To save my own life, I had no choice but to jump down from a great height. I survived, but the price was the loss of the use of my legs. From that day on, I lost all qualifications to compare myself to Yongle. On the surface, I seemed docile and obedient, but deep down, I hated Yongle with a passion. When I found out that Yongle and Shun Yu were in love with each other, I laughed for the first time in a long while. Every time I saw them talking at palace banquets, I would secretly plot my revenge. Finally, after one palace feast, Shun Yu got drunk. I escorted him back to his mansion and stayed there all night. The next day, through my deliberate manipulation, word got out that I had spent the night at the general's mansion. I had intended to use public opinion to drive a wedge between Shun Yu and Yongle, but who would have thought that Yongle, overcome with grief, would leave the capital a few days later to pursue a life of spiritual practice. I had thought my little drama was over for good, but to my surprise, Shun Yu actually agreed to marry me. The Empress flew into a rage over this incident. She thought I had stolen Yongle's destined marriage, but as I watched her rage, a flicker of satisfaction finally stirred in my heart. For that tiny bit of pleasure, I resolutely married Shinyu, but 3 years had passed, and the relationship between Shinyu and me remained lukewarm at best. We saw even less of each other than the maids who attended me day and night. I was utterly exhausted by this kind of life. Now that Yongle was back, that dark, twisted part of me reared its head once again. Rather than waiting for the two lovers to come to me, declaring their undying love, I would be the one to propose a divorce with dignity. That way, I wouldn't feel like a complete loser. To celebrate Yongle's return to the imperial court, the palace hosted a special banquet in her honor. Even though I had proposed a divorce to Shinyu, it would still take some time to finalize all the procedures. So we continued to pretend to be a loving couple and attended the royal banquet together. By the time Shinyu arrived, I had already been waiting there in my wheelchair for a long time. The area around me was completely empty. Everyone had flocked to Yongle's side, treating her like the moon surrounded by stars. As Shinyu walked in, a faint glimmer of hope stirred in my heart. I hoped he would come over to my side, allowing me to outshine Yongle in front of everyone. But the reality was cruel. Shinyu only cast a fleeting glance in my direction before striding straight toward Yongle. The two of them chatted animatedly, the harmonious atmosphere between them leaving no room for a third person. Yongle smiled as she talked to Shinyu. For once, the usually expressionless Shinyu wore a faint smile on his face, softening his stern features with a rare touch of gentleness. My heart gave an involuntary twinge. In 3 years of marriage, Shinyu had rarely smiled at me, and when he did, it was always a polite, perfunctory one. It felt like the first time I had ever seen such a contented look on his face. Around me, some people noticed the awkwardness and began whispering in voices that were neither too loud nor too soft. Most of the whispers centered on why Shinyu, as the princess's husband, wasn't staying by Princess Yongle's side. Some meddlesome female relatives of the court officials were telling the young ladies about how vicious and scheming I had been back then. How I had tricked Shinyu into marrying me. They always ended with the same line: if it weren't for her underhanded tricks, General Shin would have long since tied the knot with Princess Yongle. The young ladies listening nodded in understanding, glancing at Yongle, then at me, their eyes suddenly filled with disgust. A princess who was out of favor in the palace was even looked down upon by the court officials. I was already used to hearing such remarks. What truly made me uncomfortable was the way people kept glancing in my direction as they chatted, especially Yongle, whose eyes seemed to brim with both mockery and pity. The last thing I could stand was sympathy from Yongle. The more they stared at me, the more an irrational anger bubbled up inside me. I spun the wheels of my chair, wanting to flee this place of gossip and judgment, but for some reason, a small stone on the ground got stuck in my wheelchair's wheel. I tried to force it to turn, but it wouldn't budge. Enraged, I slammed my fist down hard on the armrest. Upon hearing the commotion, Shinyu looked over and saw that while a crowd had gathered around me to watch, no one had stepped forward to help. Perhaps remembering that we were still husband and wife, he quickly walked over, helped me turn the wheelchair around, and asked, "Do you want to go back to the mansion? I'll send you off." I pushed his hand away instinctively, frowning and saying, "No need." Shinyu froze for a moment, standing rooted to the spot. He was caught completely off guard. I fought back the surge of irritation and said coldly, "The main attraction is over there. How dare I trouble General Shin?" Only then did Shinyu come to his senses, speaking in a low voice, "Our divorce hasn't been announced yet. Don't throw a tantrum in public, we'll just be making a laughingstock of ourselves." He reached out again, wanting to help me, but this time I didn't hold back. I slapped his hand hard and snapped angrily, "Get lost. I don't need your fake kindness. A laughingstock. Ever since I walked in here, haven't people laughed enough at me? Now who are you putting on this act for?" Shinyu finally withdrew his hand awkwardly. With my head held high, I left, ignoring the surprised and disgusted stares of the crowd behind me. I had already signed the divorce papers and handed them over to Shinyu to take care of the rest of the procedures. Bored out of my mind with nothing to do, I somehow wandered back into the palace again. I heard that another selection for the goddess priestess was underway soon, and the entire palace was bustling with chaos. Needless to say, Yongle was the undisputed candidate for the role. I sat in my wheelchair, watching her twirl and dance gracefully in the imperial garden. And my mind couldn't help but wander. Back in the days before my legs were injured, I was an excellent dancer too. When I was young, I created the water spirit dance myself, which caused a sensation in the capital for a time. Back then, I wasn't as loathed by everyone in the palace as I am now. Mention Princess Yongan, and everyone would sing my praises, but later, because of the incident that left me crippled, everyone found out that I was the unfavored one. What's more, after I deliberately stole Shen Yu's marriage, I became even more detested by people. I covered my face, my mind filled with a jumble of thoughts, and I couldn't seem to figure out why I had spent my whole life chasing something so desperately, only to end up like this. In a daze, someone pushed my wheelchair. My eyes were still red, and I looked up in a fluster, only to see a face that was vaguely familiar. Princess Yongan. The voice sounded familiar too, I thought for a moment. Then asked in confusion, Xiongjian. A bright smile broke across his face immediately. I saw you from afar. Are you unhappy? I randomly wiped the tears from my face and forced a smile. No, it's just the sand getting into my eyes. Xiongjian had been my playmate in the palace when we were children. I had originally wanted to take him as my personal attendant, but who would have thought that Yongle, who had just returned to the palace, had asked the emperor for him first? I felt resentful. But I couldn't disobey the emperor's order. Later, he traveled north and south with Yongle. Come to think of it, we hadn't seen each other for several years now. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Xiongjian began to chat with me about our childhood days. He laughed cheerfully. I remember you danced beautifully when you were little. When you performed the water spirit dance even a goddess descending to earth couldn't hold a candle to you. Over the years, I've seen people in the folk imitate your dance moves, but none of them ever had half the radiance you did back then. When I heard this, an indescribable sadness welled up in my heart. So there were still people who remembered what I used to be like. Seeing that I didn't say anything, Xiongjian hesitated for a moment, then asked tentatively, "Is there really no hope for your legs?" I shook my head and sighed softly. No hope, for days on end. I can't even describe the feeling of despair. I'll probably have to live the rest of my life as a cripple. Xiongjian sighed too, then took off the jade pendant hanging from his waist, handed it to me solemnly, and smiled. This jade pendant was given to me by my mother. It can ward off misfortune and protect your safety. The jade pendant felt warm and smooth against my palm. I smiled. Protect me from what danger? Does this princess look like she's going to get into trouble? Xiongjian said earnestly. Good people are always blessed by heaven. There must be a way to cure your legs. Do you believe me? In the years right after the accident, I had gone crazy looking for imperial physicians to treat my legs, but neither the doctors among the common people nor the imperial physicians in the palace had been able to help. I had been left to face hope time and time again, only to be plunged into despair each time. I had muddled through all these years, and it was the first time anyone had told me with such full confidence, "I believe you will get better." I turned my head away, not wanting Xiongjian to see my red eyes, and forced myself to stay calm. Of course I believe it. I am a princess, a lady of noble birth. Naturally, good people are blessed by heaven. Xiongjian held the hand that was holding the jade pendant, feeling the slight trembling in my palm, and comforted me. "I mean it, trust me, there must be a way." "What are you two doing?" A cold voice came from the side. Xiongjian and I turned our heads instinctively, only to find that it was Shen Yu and Yongle who had come over together. Shen Yu saw our clasped hands, his face darkening, and sneered, "No wonder you want a divorce from me, so you've already found a new target." His words made my blood boil with anger, and I shot back, What's it to you? Youngla had always avoided confronting me head-on, but now she actually spoke up too. Didn't you say it was a gift from your mother? Isn't it supposed to be something that no one else can touch? I was about to reply when I suddenly realized that she wasn't talking to me at all. Seong-Jen said calmly, "This belongs to this humble servant. It seems to have nothing to do with your highness the princess." Youngla was even angrier, stamping her foot hard. She looked so furious that she didn't know what to do, and in the end, she just glared at me fiercely and stormed off without a care for her dignity. Watching Youngla's hasty retreat, I looked thoughtfully at Seong-Jen, and it suddenly dawned on me why Youngla had insisted on taking him with her wherever she went all these years. A smile tugged at the corners of my lips instinctively, but I didn't notice the anger that was gradually filling Shen Yu's eyes as he looked at me. By the time I returned to the princess mansion that night, the sky was already growing dark. Without Shen Yu around, I had to ask the maids to help me wash up and change my clothes. Just as I was about to blow out the candles and go to bed, Shen Yu suddenly arrived. Before he even reached me, I could smell the strong scent of alcohol on him. Shen Yu stumbled into the room, his face twisted into an expression of loss of control that I had never seen before. I frowned. "What are you doing here? Can't I come back to my own home?" Shen Yu slurred. Drunk, I turned my face away uncomfortably, trying to stay calm. "We've already divorced. This is the princess mansion, not your Shen residence." "Divorced?" Shen Yu laughed twice, a bitter sound. "I never agreed to it. All the necessary documents have been submitted. I don't need your approval." Shen Yu walked slowly towards me, then suddenly bent down and wrapped his arms around me gently, whispering in a low voice, "Yonggan, don't you want me anymore?" My body stiffened instantly. Neither Shen Yu's embrace nor this slightly coquettish tone of his was something I had ever experienced before. For a split second, I almost drowned in this feeling, but the next moment, I pulled myself back to my senses and pushed Shen Yu away hard, shouting angrily, "Who allowed you to act so recklessly in the princess mansion?" Shen Yu hung his head after being pushed away, and I couldn't see his expression clearly. He slowly stood up, and when he lifted his head again, his eyes were bloodshot. Shen Yu took a step forward, lifted my chin with his hand, his blood-red eyes scanning my face, and said coldly, "So, you finally figured out that the person Youngla likes isn't me. What are you going to do next? Seduce that pretty boy, and do to him what you did to me back then? How can you be so cruel? So heartless?" Shen Yu roared, then leaned down and kissed my lips fiercely. I struggled violently for a long time before Shen Yu finally let me go. He stroked my lower lip with his fingers, then suddenly smiled. "You were the one who came after me first. Now you want to leave? Impossible." Shen Yu stood up straight, lifted me up in his arms, carried me into my room, and then gently laid me down on the bed. I closed my eyes nervously, feeling a little afraid of this side of Shen Yu. But he didn't do anything to me as I had expected. Instead, he bent down and kissed my forehead softly, his voice filled with restraint as he whispered, "Sleep," and to my own surprise, I actually fell asleep in such a strange and tense atmosphere. When I woke up the next day, Shen Yu was already gone. During breakfast, the steward suddenly came to report that the Empress had summoned me to the palace. She rarely thought of summoning me even once a year. This time, she had called me because she had found a miracle doctor from among the common people. Over the years, wave after wave of people claiming to be miracle doctors had come, each saying they could cure my legs, but in the end, all of them had failed miserably. Yet when I heard the Empress ask me in the main hall, "Would you be willing to give it one more try?" I couldn't help but nod my head tremblingly in agreement. No matter how many times I had despaired, I still wanted to try to believe again. This miracle doctor's treatment method was different from the others. He inserted silver needles into acupoints all over my body, each time making me feel so much pain that I wished I were dead. At the worst of it, I even thought about giving up, but in the end, I gritted my teeth and endured it. And after the excruciating pain, I suddenly realized that the pain wasn't just coming from the places where the needles were inserted, it seemed like I could feel pain in my legs too. This discovery filled me with indescribable joy. For all these years since my legs had lost all sensation, I had never known that pain could make me so happy. During my active treatment, Shinyu also came to the palace often. He claimed it was to accompany me, and every day he really did support me as I tried to walk in the imperial garden. Every time I lost my temper and told him to get lost, Shinyu just pretended not to hear me. As the days went by, even the emperor couldn't stand it anymore, and he scolded me. It's already rare enough for Shinyu to come and accompany you every day. Don't keep throwing tantrums like a spoiled princess, you'll scare your husband away. Shinyu, on the other hand, put on a pitiful act and said, Father Emperor, Yonggan and I had a quarrel a few days ago, and she wouldn't let me into the house. That's why I have to come to the palace every day to accompany the princess. When the emperor heard this, he became even angrier, raising his eyebrows and saying, Yonggan, have you completely forgotten all the etiquette I taught you? Not letting your husband come home after a quarrel, do you want to make a laughingstock of yourself? I was about to argue, but we've already divorced. But before I could say anything, Shinyu quietly squeezed my palm and smiled. With Father Emperor saying this, I feel relieved. I believe the princess is sensible enough not to blame me. I had no choice but to say, I understand. After everyone else had left, Shinyu dropped his pitiful act instantly and grinned mischievously. Don't you dare tell Father Emperor that we've divorced, or you'll be charged with deceiving the emperor. My heart skipped a beat, and I thought to myself that I was in trouble. Shinyu went on, a triumphant smile on his face. I didn't submit the divorce documents. We're still officially registered as husband and wife with the authorities. So, princess, can I come home tonight? After that day, Shinyu seemed like a completely different person, no longer cold and taciturn as he used to be. He chatted away in my ear every day about all sorts of things he'd seen and heard, and often went out on the streets to buy me gifts. Though he had always brought me nice things in the past, I could feel the difference. Before, it had been out of marital duty, but now, I couldn't fathom what was going on in his mind. Shinyu's transformation had been too abrupt. Leaving me utterly bewildered, Xiongjian also came to the palace frequently to accompany me during my rehabilitation. 3 months later, my legs trembled as I managed to stand up on my own for the first time in years. Without thinking, I almost called out for Shinyu, only to remember he had been summoned by the emperor to the imperial study for a discussion. Fortunately, Xiongjian was beside me, cheering me on and encouraging me, which eased the awkwardness of my momentary urge to seek someone out, but my leg strength was still insufficient. I couldn't stand for more than a quarter of an hour before feeling a dull ache and weakness. Xiongjian immediately wheeled over my chair and helped me sit down slowly. In the evening, he escorted me back to the princess mansion, the joy on my face lingering. Xiongjian looked at me with a smile, then before he could restrain himself, leaned down and kissed me on the cheek. Both of us froze. I'm sorry, he said awkwardly. I feigned nonchalance, avoiding his gaze, and hesitated for a moment before speaking. It's nothing. This princess is in high spirits today, and I suppose you are too, so it's only natural for one to be overcome by emotion. Xiongjian smiled as if nothing had happened. I truly was overcome by emotion. The adoration in his eyes as he looked at me was unmistakable, and I couldn't help but notice it. But since the conversation hadn't ventured that far, I didn't want to ruin the friendship between us, so I smiled and said, It's getting late. You should return to the palace first. I can go inside by myself. Instead, Xiongjian knelt down beside my wheelchair, leaned in suddenly, and said, Truly, you cannot see how I feel about you. I remained silent, and he went on, I know you plan to divorce Shinyu. If you do leave him, would you consider giving me a chance? I sighed. Then finally replied, I'm sorry. Upon hearing those 2 words, Xiongjian laughed too. I knew it, of course. I've known your choice all along, yet I couldn't let go. Had to hear you say it with your own mouth. Seong-jen was about to say something more when Shin-yu suddenly appeared out of nowhere. He clenched his fist and swung it hard at Seong-jen's face. As a trained martial artist, Seong-jen stood no chance against him at all, trapped in my wheelchair. I couldn't intervene to stop the fight, so I could only shout anxiously for them to cease. Within moments, the brawl was over. Seong-jen knelt on the ground, gasping for breath, while Shin-yu trotted over to me, putting on a pitiful expression as he held out the back of his hand. Look, a big gash from a stone, it's bleeding so badly. The wound looked gruesome and terrifying, still oozing blood. My heart gave a sharp, painful twinge, and I snapped angrily, "Who told you to start a fight? I'll go get a doctor." With that, I turned my head to call for the mansion steward. Shin-yu dropped his pitiful act instantly, shooting a triumphant glare at Seong-jen as if to provoke him. After more than half a year of treatment and recuperation, my legs had almost fully recovered. Whenever someone saw me practicing dancing in the Imperial Garden, they would whisper mocking remarks behind my back, but I paid them no mind whatsoever. The New Year's sacrifice was approaching again. I wanted to be the goddess priestess who performed the ritual dance, but Yongle refused to back down either. In the end, the emperor set a date for us to compete in public to decide who would get the role. With the new year drawing near, palace banquets had become frequent affairs. The news of my recovered legs had spread throughout the palace, yet no one really cared. They had forgotten what I used to be like, and only laughed at me for being so overconfident as to compete with Yongle. At first, their words had made me unhappy, but recently, I seemed to have found a way to get under Yongle's skin. In the past, whenever Yongle saw me, she had always maintained a poised and graceful demeanor, leaving me with nowhere to vent my anger. But ever since she had caught me with Seong-jen that time, her attitude towards me had turned icy cold every time we met. I delighted in riling her up, so at every palace banquet, I would chat and laugh with Seong-jen animatedly, feeling a surge of satisfaction only when I saw her lose her composure. But while I was enjoying myself, someone else was far from happy. Because of the way I deliberately provoked Yongle, Shin-yu finally couldn't hold it in anymore and got into a fight with me. 4 days now, he had been hanging on my every word, catering to my every whim. I had almost forgotten all about my original plan to divorce him. His sudden outburst jolted me into realizing that nearly a whole year had passed already. Watching me getting along so well with Seong-jen, Shin-yu exploded with anger. "Do you still intend to divorce me?" I frowned, not understanding why he was throwing another fit, and shot back, "If you hadn't meddled behind my back, we would have been done with each other a year ago." His words struck a nerve with Shin-yu. His face turned cold as he said bluntly, "So if it weren't for me clinging on to you so desperately, you would have run off with Seong-jen long ago, wouldn't you?" I couldn't stand hearing him talk like that, and demanded sharply, "Run off? Watch your tongue." Shin-yu let out 2 bitter laughs, then spoke plainly. "Do you think I don't know the truth? You only married me to get back at Yongle. You agreed to be with me just to ruin my engagement to her. Now that you know she never liked me, you want to get rid of me, this inconvenience, so you can be with Seong-jen instead, isn't that it? I was never in your heart at all. You were just using me this entire time. If I hadn't pretended not to love you all these years, you would have found out the truth long ago, and kicked me out of the house the very day after our wedding, wouldn't you?" As he said this, the corners of Shin-yu's eyes reddened, a rare sight. I fell silent. He was right. I had only married him to spite Yongle. If I had known from the start that Yongle didn't like him, perhaps we would never have made it to the wedding at all. But there was one thing Shin-yu didn't know. I had actually fallen in love with him a long time ago. But I was crippled, out of favor in the palace, not to mention, I had stolen him away using underhanded schemes. With our marriage starting off like this, how could I ever bring myself to confess my love for him? Seeing that I had nothing to say, Shin-yu took a deep breath, as if afraid that in his rage, he might hurt me. He stood up, flicked his sleeves, and stormed off. That night, I waited for him in my room the entire night. But Shun Yu never came back. It wasn't until the third day that he finally returned from outside, his body covered in wind and snow. His face etched with a weariness I had rarely seen before. When he spotted me, he smiled, pulled out some pastries I loved to eat, and said, "I lined up to buy these this morning, try them." I sighed, not reaching out to take the pastries, and said, "We need to talk." No, I hadn't expected him to refuse. Shun Yu forced a smile, avoiding my gaze, and said flatly, "It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you want to provoke. As long as you're still by my side, that's all that matters. Haven't we gotten through these past few years like this? Can't we just go on like this?" Seeing him looking so vulnerable, a layer of sweat covered my entire body. I turned slightly to the right, and sure enough, there stood Shun Yu not far away, watching me with a smile. His eyes filled with nothing but love. No matter when I turned around, he was always there, watching me intently, without a single distraction. My heart stirred, and I smiled back at him. As soon as my dance ended, the emperor announced excitedly that I would be the goddess priestess. Tears of joy welled up in my eyes. Threatening to spill over, the empress smiled gracefully, her expression still as cold as ever, but no resentment lingered in my heart anymore. Instead, an overwhelming softness filled me. Youngla had been smiling up until then, but when she saw me walking towards her, she forced the smile off her face abruptly, then gave me a challenging look, but her expression was so stiff that her entire face seemed almost contorted. I couldn't help but laugh, then slowly reached out and hugged her, my voice choking up as I said, "Thank you." Youngla tried to push me away, but her hands froze halfway, hanging in mid-air as she froze in place. "Thank you for everything you've done for me. Thank you for finding the miracle doctor to cure my legs. Thank you for never loving Shun Yu, and for bringing him into my life," I whispered silently in my heart. Youngla sighed softly, then hugged me back. "So you finally found out." She let go of me, looking at me with tears glistening in her eyes, and said, "I was the one who wronged you back then. But the situation was urgent. Mother Empress could only carry me away first, since I was closer to her. By the time she tried to go back into the fire, the flames had grown too fierce for any of us to get through. All these years, I've seen the resentment in your eyes whenever you looked at us, and I didn't know how to make amends for it. The only thing I could do was try to find a way to heal your legs, hoping that everything would get better once you grew up." He glanced at Shun Yu behind me, then smiled softly and whispered, "As for the marriage, it was actually Shun Yu who proposed it. He said that if he asked for your hand directly, you would definitely refuse, but if he pretended to be engaged to me, you would surely be unable to resist stealing him away." At his words, I couldn't help but blush. Xiong Jian also smiled in relief. "It's good that you finally know the truth. There was never any need to hide it." Then he teased Youngla, "You were worried that Princess Yonggan was petty and would think you were humiliating her, but she's clearly far from being petty." Before he could finish speaking, an embarrassed and enraged Youngla slapped him hard on the forehead. For the first time ever, I couldn't help but roll my eyes at him too. The day of the sacrifice drew near. During this period, I practiced dancing in the princess mansion every day, terrified of ruining this hard-won opportunity. But just then, Shun Yu suddenly received an urgent military report from the border, ordering him to rush back to the northern frontier at once. My heart ached with reluctance, but state affairs came first, and I couldn't make him stay. I could only watch as Shun Yu left the capital. Before his departure, he asked me, "The secret you said you would tell me after the sacrifice ceremony, will you still tell it?" I nodded. Shun Yu suddenly smiled, leaned down, and kissed my forehead gently, whispering, "Then wait for me to come back." The sacrifice ceremony would be held in a month's time. Dressed in the goddess priestess's ceremonial robes, I stood under the gaze of thousands and recreated the water spirit dance of my youth once more. Some in the crowd remembered the grand spectacle of years ago, and began calling my name in unison from below the platform. When my dance ended, I looked out at the excited throng, feeling as if I had been transported back to the happiest days of my childhood. In that moment, I was neither Yonggan nor a princess, I was just an ordinary person.
filled with joy for the sake of dance. Once the emperor and empress finished burning incense, the sacrifice ceremony was officially completed. As I looked down into the crowd, I suddenly spotted Shinyu standing there, smiling at me. He must have just returned from the battlefield. His body was still clad in silver armor. When he saw my eyes lock onto his, he smiled wider. I hurried down the steps, but before I could reach the crowd, Shinyu had already stepped forward to meet me. In his hands, he held a glowing blue luminous pearl, which he offered to me carefully. I saw this while I was away. I thought you would like it, so I brought it back for you. I took the luminous pearl, my face lighting up with delight. I love it so much. Seeing me smile, Shinyu smiled too. His eyes filled with undisguised admiration as he said plainly, "You look stunning today. Your beauty, your dance, everything about you is perfect." I replied, "You saw it then. You came as soon as you got back. I'm so glad you didn't miss it." We held each other's gaze for a moment, then Shinyu suddenly asked, "So can you tell me that secret now?" I gazed fondly at the softly glowing blue pearl in my hand, then grinned mischievously. "I suddenly don't want to anymore. It's all right if you don't," he said. "After all, I already know what you were going to say." We chatted animatedly as we walked back to the princess mansion, the setting sun at our backs, just like an ordinary couple.